Hey guys, this is Joe. Today I want to introduce you to our partner Vanta. Achieving ISO 27001 or SOC 2 compliance can unlock major growth for your company and build customer trust, but the process can be time intense and costly. Vanta automates compliance, getting your audit ready quickly and saving up to 85% of associated costs. And Vanta scales with your business, helping you enter new markets. Join 7,000 global companies like Atlassian, Flow Health, and Quora that trust Vanta. Claim 20% off Vanta at vanta.com/startupradio. That's vanta.com, spelled vanta.com/startupradio.
Welcome to Startuprad.io, your podcast and YouTube blog covering the German startup scene with news, interviews, and live events.
Hello and welcome everybody. This is Joe from Startuprad.io, your startup podcast and YouTube blog from Germany, again bringing you a subject matter expert interview. As so frequently, this interview is sponsored by Startup Raven, the easiest way for startups to find investors and cooperation partners, meaning corporates. Go down here in the show notes or go to www.startupraven.com. This time, I have Tara here, who is a political analyst. I'll solve pretty soon why she is here, but first I would like to welcome her. Hey, how you doing?
Hi, Joe. I'm happy to be here.
Totally my pleasure. We have to tell that you are an employee and political analyst of the company called PANALIS that has been a guest of Startuprad.io in the past. So I'll link the interview with your two bosses down here in the show notes. The reason why you are here is that on March 18th, the 100 days of the new coalition of the Olaf Scholz government are over. And that's usually a time the press takes off the gloves and looks back what they've achieved. And we thought, we take this milestone, the first 100 days, and have a look into what is going on in the German political system relevant to the startups. But first, let us talk a little bit about what the German parliamentary system is.
Yes, sure. So it's always good to look at the political system of Germany before doing an analysis. So first of all, Germany is a federal republic and a parliamentary democracy. And like in any democracy, the power always stems from the people. So the German people elect their representatives. And the Germans are able to participate in two elections, one every 5 years and one every 4 years. Every 5 years, the people can elect the state parliaments, which then elect the state governments, which then send delegates to the so-called Bundesrat. The Bundesrat is one of the German legislative bodies. And in the Bundesrat, every state of Germany is represented and has a say in matter of legislations and stuff like that. And it's
something like the US Senate. So basically, that's where the states have their voice. But compared to the US, it's not like two senators from each state, but
it's kind of a proportional representation of the states. So the biggest states have more representatives in the Bundesrat. And it differs to the Senate because it's not like a second chamber. It's its own constitutional body. So that you have to keep in mind when talking about the German Bundesrat. And its main tasks include approving and vetoing acts of legislation. To that.
which also means that they don't bring forward any bills. They just have to decide what Bundestag, the German parliament, did, and they can say thumbs up, thumbs down, or hey guys, let's do it again.
Yes, exactly. That's how it works. So it's the Bundestag that actually comes up with the bills and the acts of legislation. And the German people are able to vote for the Bundestag every 4 years in the parliamentary elections. And currently, the Bundestag consists of 736 members, and it was just very recently elected in September 2021. And its main tasks include electing the federal chancellor of Germany. And, as we already said, the lawmaking, as it is the main body of legislation.
Exactly. On December 8th, they elected Olaf Scholz. So that means not like in the US, you directly elect the chancellor. We learned from our past mistakes, and now you first have to elect the politicians who are hopefully a little bit saner than the public, and they have to elect the chancellor. That brings us a little bit to the electoral system. I think we could spend like a complete podcast just on this, but let's cut it short and say you have two votes. One of them is like proportionately for the party you elect, and the second one is like for the direct candidate of your county, your electoral area. How is it called properly in English? Wahlkreis?
What's it called? I just know it's the plurality vote here.
Electional district.
Yeah, electoral district, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Now that we have figured that out, so basically, and if you get more direct candidates through the districts, you get more mandates, meaning the Bundestag is growing. But we won't get into this topic because it's a little bit strange. It's hard to understand. Plus, there are steady initiatives to limit that, and it may change over time.
Yeah, it's really complicated. You're right about that. What might be good to know is about the 5% hurdle you have to get into the Bundestag as a party. So it's quite difficult if your party doesn't get a total of 5% of all of the votes. Your party might not at all be admitted into the Bundestag, which makes it quite difficult for just one party to get the absolute majority of votes. So usually a coalition of parties is needed to form the government.
Mm-hmm. And speaking about parties, we do have now there come a lot of names, abbreviations, three-letter acronyms, TLAs, but just take it. We'll explain a little bit, but basically that means the political parties. The SPD, it's middle left, I would say. You may remember Gerhard Schröder, Olaf Scholz, they're from SPD. Then the FDP, the Liberals, they have the Vice Chancellor Christian Lindner, who may play a role later on. The Green Party, obvious reason for the name. CDU, CSU, it's middle right, I would say. You may remember Helmut Kohl and Angela Merkel, chancellors by them. The AfD, the very right-wing party, and Die Linke, the left in the Bundestag. I think we have them now all sorted out, at least mentioned here.
Yes, I think so too. So those are the most important parties right now, and I guess that's it.
Don't get us wrong. There are like a zillion more parties around here, but they're the one currently present. Plus, SPD, FDP, and the Greens are forming a coalition government. So they wrote a big contract. That is what we want to do. And that's why we are talking here, right?
Yes, exactly. So this coalition paper, it took quite some time to debated about, and this coalition of parties is actually quite major because I don't think it has been like this before. So SPD with FDP is just kind of historical for Germany. But yes, they did come up with some really good ideas. You do have to talk about that.
Yes, exactly. Plus, we may add for the time frame. So the election was going on September 26th. And if you have in mind that Olaf Scholz was elected chancellor on December 8th, you can guess that they have been negotiating for almost 2.5 months there to form the coalition government. So there's a lot of thought that went into that. We also linked the coalition contract 2021 till 2025 here in the show notes, or if you're consuming this on some mobile device, there will be a link to our blog post and there will be the link to the PDF. But please keep in mind it's German only. That said, you are here today because you can tell us a lot about the German parties and their position on startups. And we're talking about here what we will refer to as the coalition government, as we said, SPD, FDP, and the Greens, or just the Scholz government.
Yes, exactly. That is kind of my job. At PANALIS, I do political analysis, and I've taken a really good look at the positions of the coalition government and the coalition contract and their position to startups and startup politics in general.
Great. And what did you find for us?
So I guess it's really good to start prior to the parliamentary elections because if you take a look at the election programs of the governing parties, you kind of see that, well, contrary to the beliefs, they did have very similar ideas and approaches in terms of startup politics. So I think it would be of more value to kind of highlight the differences between the parties. And you have to say there are really not that many differences. So starting with the SPD as, well, the former party of the working class, you can say that they're really big on creating jobs. And of course, making Germany like a leading startup location, as well as highlighting the importance of diversity and social justice for startups. And with that, they wanted to try to create a culture of second chances. So, meaning that people who try to create startups that failed, well, get a second chance and going in that direction, but as well as supporting women or companies of common interest, social interest. And FDP, well, one thing that stands out with the FDP is their ambition to create the so-called Deutsche Transfergemeinschaft, in English, German transfer community, as an institution, a self-governing institution supporting technology and social innovations that is supposed to be a connection point for universities and businesses. And also, this differs quite a lot from the other points, is they wanted to create digital freedom zones where startups could work in peace with fewer regulations from the government and so on. And then, of course, we have the Greens, who really, well, of course, keeping up with the environmental aspect of the party, wanted to support the ecological aspect of startup politics, with funding of green techs, with building up the ecological potential of technologies, but also, and with this kind of keeping in frame with the SPD reducing disadvantages. But here they also took a closer look at supporting people with a migration background. And they also wanted to stand in for kind of also like an innovation agency by the name of DENOVA. So, yeah, those are the major points that differ from the other points of the parties. But in general, you can say they do have quite a lot in common.
And they also have in common their coalition contract. So what they are planning for the next 5 years until the next general election. I was wondering what is in the part of the coalition contract that may concern the startups.
Yeah, so there are some major points, some major focus points about startup politics in the coalition contract. And one thing that stands out is the supporting of pioneering business fields. So, with modernization and everything that has to come for the future, the new government, of course, wants to support businesses like artificial intelligence or fields with quantum technology, cybersecurity, robotics, hydrogen, everything that has to do with the ecological aspect like sustainable mobility, bioeconomy, or circular economy. So that's a big topic for the coalition. But also planned for the next years are so-called one-stop shops. And these are supposed to be sort of contact points for startups, for startup advice, for general support, for help in matters of registration, with the intention to minimize bureaucracy. And the real aim is to kind of make it possible for startups to be able to found a startup within 24 hours. So that is really ambitious, and we'll have to see how that works out, because currently founding a startup takes many months, and that's 24 hours. That's really ambitious. And then we also have
We may tell our audience that basically you have to go to a notary, either get the standard contract or like a individualized contract prepared by a notary or lawyer. And then you go to the notary, there's an official act, you'll read it to all the co-founders, the complete contract. If you have a really complex company, you may want to bring snacks. Usually if there's a big contract, there will be some sect, German sparkling wine around, and then you can sit there sometimes for hours and listen to the notary. When he reads everything, everybody understands, then everybody signs, and then it goes to the public registry. And then at the public registry, you also have to wait for quite some time. And then at one point, you get an invoice because you have been registered. But personal experience, that can take somewhere between 1 to 3 months, depending on where you are right now. Meaning there are the public registry are always part of the local court, depending if they're very busy. Plus, if people are on vacation, and there has been a specific situation during the times of Corona, I'm sure they could not work full power there. So it was a little bit specific for me, but it took 2 to 3 months just for me to set up the companies here.
Yeah, so that's one thing that the new coalition definitely wants to change. So, making that process faster than it is right now. but also with coming back to the point of social justice, this is a thing that all parties really seem to want to change, is the support for women in startup politics as well as people with a migration background, but also supporting social startups. And this they want to achieve with special scholarships or funding programs, especially for females, or making a special quota for females in investment committees, things like that, just to kind of make everything a little bit more equal. Because if you look at the quota right now for women in the startup field, it's really quite low at 15 to 16%, I think. So yeah, a lot can be done here. And also they want to, or the new government wants to give startups better access to data and for research results, to enable new innovative business models and social innovations. Because you have to keep up with the times, and digitization, and modernization are really coming in the flow right now. So you have to keep up with that. And then, of course, finance is always a big.
Plus, when you're working with artificial intelligence, machine learning, you need a lot of data. And if you just make up data, your AI never learns the right thing. So that's basically where you need a lot of data. The more, the better. Sorry for the interruption. Go ahead.
No problem. So as I was saying, also finance is also a big topic, and which is also really important for both sides. So the new government wants to mobilize private capital for financing, and they want to use institutional investors like insurance companies or the pension funds to be able to create better funding for startups. Because if you just, think about it, there's just a lot of money sitting there in these insurance pots that could be used for startup funding, for example. And then also connecting to the financing topic is the KfW. The KfW is the German state-owned investment and development bank. And the coalition wants to strengthen and develop the KfW. So they kind of want to make the KfW the important innovation and investment agency in Germany. It is already quite important, you have to say that as well, but make it even more important, and give it more money to be able to create more funds. And then a last point.
We may add
Mm-hmm.
for our audience that KfW is really a big organization. That means they're most of what they're doing is dishing out loans, very low interest loans for many different things. So basically, if you're building a house, you do low energy, you put some solar power on top of it, you can get a low interest loan from them. If you're a farmer buying a big tractor, you contact KfW. Businesses can get specialized loans. Export financing. Germany has a very large export driven industry. All that stuff is done either by KfW or another bank within this group. So they're very important in many different aspects. Go ahead.
Yes, exactly. Then I wanted to add as a last point the relevance of the government, because the government has decided to step in as a contracting authority even more, and increase the access to public tenders. So It wants to make it, especially for startups that go in the direction of the government agenda and like edu tech startups, wants to make it possible for them to get jobs and get funding from the government directly. So those are really the points that stand out with the coalition contract in terms of startup politics.
And that is basically the guidelines around what they are planning, like the bigger picture. And do we already see some initiatives? For example, we had the person in charge of the 10 billion startup program here in an interview. Is this going to continue?
Yes, of course. So that's not something that will just be forgotten overnight or overridden. The startup program of the former government will, of course, still be intact. Also referred to as the Future Fund, and the new government plans on just further developing it. Because it's a really great initiative. And for example, the new government wants to reserve parts of the Future Fund specifically for female founders. So there are some ideas in place for the 10 billion startup program, but startups or whatever. So startups won't have to fear any fundamental changes. It will still be there. The money will still be there for funding.
Mm-hmm. What I was wondering, there have been also some rumors of a French and German initiative in the European Union to invest in startups. There was an article on the semiconductor investments the European Union wants to do in order to produce semiconductors in Europe again. There should also be some money earmarked for startups, plus the Vice Chancellor and Finance Minister Lindner also wanted to set some money aside for startups. Can you talk a little bit about that? And of course, not all of this is final, so we're talking about potential scenarios here mostly.
Yes, there is will, let's say, in the Ministry of Finance to contribute $1 billion to the so-called European Tech and Champions Initiative. And this is the European Tech Champions Initiative is a pan-European initiative to fund scale-ups. So there's going to be, if this all really is going to be set in place, 10 to 20 funds from I think it's 16 European countries for scale ups in later stages. So I think that's really great that all these European countries want to come together and contribute to scale ups, which are also really important for the startup industry.
Yes, there has been some complaints about like the chain of financing. So very early on, you start with your own money, then come the business angels, then come the early stage fund, and at one point you are considered to be a scale up. So you need bigger money, more serious money, and there used to be, or there still is, a potential gap, and that's what they're trying to fix here.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, now that we talked such a lot about politics, bottom line is there is a program to have 10 billion invested in startups. There is an additional political will to invest 1 billion more in the European Tech Initiative. Plus, there is some interest to make startups foundable within 24 hours. Did I forget anything important here?
No, I don't think so. Maybe that the new government also wants to found a new agency and create a new law specifically for a so-called Bureaucracy Relief Act, which is to fasten or develop the reduction of bureaucracy in politics. And this new agency is that what the FDP and the Greens wanted. So an agency, an institution that is independent and kind of brings together universities and research to be used for startups, for creating business ideas, and so that none of the ideas or anything will just go to waste. So these are some of the plans that the new government has. And time will show how this new law, this new agency, and generally the will for the politics to take a step ahead with startups will actually be set in action.
For everybody who doesn't understand this idea of an agency, we may just highlight that MP3 was actually invented in Germany, but the big money was made outside of Germany, and Germany wants to keep investing in basic research to turn up hopefully stuff like MP3 again, but then want to also commercialize it within the country.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Tara, thank you very much. That was a very small trip into what is politically going on in Germany, what to expect from the next government, and really, hopefully, we'll have you back in some time and talk about what the guys, meaning the coalition government, actually realized here.
Yes, it was really a pleasure talking about politics, taking a look at the new government, at the coalition contract, and kind of seeing that expectations of startups were really met in the coalition contract. But of course, there is still much to do, but that's just how politics work. And as I said, time will show what will actually be changed and how startups can profit from the politics.
Well, great. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure having you as a guest. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
That's all, folks. Find more news, streams, events, and interviews at www.startuprad.io. Remember, sharing is caring.